There's been a lot in the news recently about traumatic brain injuries, mostly in the context of athletes, especially football players who have suffered concussions that have had long-lasting impacts and injury that they've had to deal with for the remainder of their lives. But traumatic brain injuries can be caused not only just in sporting activities, but in things like automobile accidents, trip and slip and fall accidents, or even products liability situations where a defective product maybe explodes and a hard piece of metal or other object strikes somebody in the head, causing a traumatic brain injury. The Center for Disease Control, the CDC, estimates that as many as 1.7 million people a year suffer from traumatic brain injuries. About 75% of those would be considered concussion or mild traumatic brain injuries. The medical professionals categorize them as mild, moderate, or severe in terms of the brain injury, but we consider, and I think our clients consider, any brain injury to be severe or significant, and so we treat them that way. They can be caused by any number of activities or traumas. We're not going to spend time today talking about the particulars, the function or the anatomy of the brain, the axons, the neurons, things of that nature. Basically, the way these injuries are caused is by either direct trauma, which would be obvious. If you're involved in an automobile accident, your head might strike some portion of the interior of the vehicle, causing a direct trauma to the brain. A slip and fall or trip and fall, where we've had clients actually striking their head directly on a floor or other solid surface, causing a direct trauma brain injury. And even we've had cases, as I mentioned, alluding to it earlier, where in a products liability setting, a defective product actually exploded and a hard piece of metal struck our client in the head, causing a direct trauma. But even if there's not direct trauma involved in an accident, there can be a brain injury caused. And that's usually caused by what's known as a coup, counter-coup type of a motion, where if, like in a rear-end automobile accident, the body and the head is thrown forward and then back, the brain, which is suspended in a gelatinous material inside the skull, will rock forward and back, striking either the back of the skull or the forward portion of the skull, causing a brain injury. And so it's important, if you're involved in an accident and think you might have suffered a brain injury, to really pay attention to that. The symptoms that you can experience if you've suffered a mild traumatic brain injury or a concussion type of a brain injury are things like dizziness, vertigo, nausea, memory loss, even word-searching difficulties where you're trying to communicate with someone and it's difficult for you to grasp that word that before you always would have no problem with, and now you can't quite grasp that word that before you wouldn't have difficulty with, those word-searching problems. There can be loss of appetite, depression, tiredness, or fatigue. Those are all classic types of symptoms that we see in our clients and the medical professionals see in their patients that suffer from mild traumatic brain injury. If you've been involved in an accident and you're experiencing any of these symptoms, it's important that you consult with a lawyer who is experienced in these types of cases, because the defense, whether it's the defendant directly or their insurance company, will fight these cases very vigorously and will try to downplay the importance of them. And so it's important that you get adequately and effectively evaluated by a medical professional like a neurologist or neuropsychologist to do the test to be able to confirm that a brain injury has occurred, and then to be represented by a lawyer throughout the case who knows how to present the case persuasively to whether it's the insurance adjuster, the defense lawyer, or ultimately, if the case goes to trial, to present it to a jury in an effective and persuasive way so that you or your loved one can be adequately compensated for the harms and damages that resulted from your accident, including any brain injury that was suffered.